have a seat and bring your attention to the front of the room. Yeah. So everybody, all the presenters, if you can join me at the front. Yep, let's go. So now we are going to listen to 5 lightning talks. Each speaker has 5 minutes to present, and then we have a 30-minute coffee break coming up, so bear with us. The break is going to be on the mezzanine level where registration was earlier, and where the posters will be displayed, so you can ask them all the questions you want afterwards. Please do get your coffee and engage with the speakers and learn about their projects and tools, because that's what we're here for. The coffee break is kindly sponsored by Cargo, and OASPA thanks them greatly for their support. And we are running a little bit behind, but we will try to get back on point afterwards. So at 4:05, so after the talk, this lightning talk and the coffee break, 4:05, then we have a keynote, right? No, a panel first and then a keynote. You're in for a treat, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else. Also, we have a few more speakers here. The rest of them can come up whenever you're ready. There will be timing on the floor, so stick to your 5 minutes, people. And you can introduce yourselves, please. First on my list is the lovely Christina Drummond, please.
I like starting with applause. Hi, everyone. So I'm Christine Drummond. I'm the executive director for the Open Access Book Usage Data Trust, and I'm hosted at the University of North Texas. I know that's a mouthful. But before I get started, since I have 5 minutes, and I was hoping to give you some time back, which I will still do, I wanted to, first of all, just thank again our opening panel for helping us think about the importance of taking the time and making the space to not just hear from diverse voices, but to actively work to collaborate with the diversity in our community, given the geopolitical and socioeconomic operating realities that we all have that are unique to our own place in this global open scholarship ecosystem. So let's give them another round of applause. What do you think? So you're here to hear about my poster, which I know none of you can actually read from there. And so with that, let me just give you a preview so you know to come find me at the break. So what we're trying to do with the Data Trust is to help facilitate the exchange of usage data between parties when that data is seen as sensitive, given those geopolitical and regional realities. As national OA policies are emerging in our own countries, we know those federal agencies are increasingly seeking, if not requiring, authoritative evidence to support their OA-related policy development appropriations. As institutions are responding with reporting and compliance measures, the stakeholders that provide the data for those reports, and indeed the analytics, are trying to figure out how do we reduce the cost of pulling that together? And how do we, while we're at it, increase the quality in that data and, frankly, the trust in that underlying data that supports our open access decision-making? This area is pretty complex, as the platforms, services, and organizations that make open scholarship available are the ones that are creating this key data about usage, impact, and engagement, in some cases even behavioral data. And this information spans a complex landscape when you think about sharing it, both in terms of data policy and privacy regulations. So what are we doing about it? In my poster, I'm describing how the Open Access Book Usage Data Trust effort is bringing together diverse scholarly book publishing stakeholders from around the world to align our efforts with the European Strategy for Data. And we're doing that by developing governance, rules that are put into a rule book, and then informing standard contractual clauses for data exchange, and then ultimately putting all of this into what is known as an international data space, to secure these data connections between organizations so that we can ultimately have governed transit access and use of high-quality, granular, open access usage data. So stop by my poster to learn about not only our journey, but how we're exploring how to take this sensitive data exchange support and expand it not just for open access reporting and analytics, but to apply it and to support knowledge graphs and open access funding model evaluation. Thank you.
I can't read any of that, so none of you can. But we will look at it upstairs if you want to see it in great detail. So hi, I'm Sam. That was really snappy and fast. Thank you so much. I'm probably going to try and keep to that time too. I'm a senior product manager at Wiley Partner Solutions. I'm here this week with my colleagues Anna and Yavi. And like a lot of people in this room, we're here to talk about research integrity, specifically how we as scholarly publishers need to embrace proactive integrity. So I was at OASPA a few days ago. I presented some real-life findings from building RI platforms to manage real journals. Apologies to anyone that was there. I had some really good conversations. They've not changed the philosophy. The philosophy I'm presenting today will be the same, which is, as publishers, we need to build tools to reorient and pivot journals and portfolios from being reactive to being proactive about integrity. So when I say reactive, what do I actually mean? So if you're looking at RI at a highly reactive publisher, which you would see in the bottom left, but you can't, you'll usually see a combination of a few things. Reactive journals will have RI teams, but they'll probably be overstretched. They'll get tip-offs. They'll have investigations that take a lot of time they could be using to focus on in-progress, newly submitted content. They might have submissions that some of their published record isn't in tip-top condition, but still have no idea where to start with that. And they'll be looking at content across multiple systems, in multiple places, in multiple silos. And that siloed journal data problem is crucial. So siloed journals are an amazing way of hiding hidden threats in your portfolio, especially if users are acting in multiple roles across those journals. So example of that, let's just say you see signs of suspicious peer review activity from the same person across different journal submissions in your portfolio next week. That's actionable evidence that you can use to pivot resource to investigate it. In a reactive state, you do not have that luxury. It's not that you're not acting on these things, you just don't know they exist. So there's a level of vulnerability, a level of uncertainty there. And as Anna said also here, there's a level of pride that these problems don't happen here at my journal. So publishers with even the slightest concern around RI need to shift that into a proactive mindset to tackle those processes early in the publishing lifecycle before you waste timely multiple rounds of review, energy on papers that carry risk. So where there are silos, we need to instead normalize looking at a paper and its surrounding artifacts as a breadcrumb trail. Everything around it as peer review happens is important. And that's a trail we can follow to look for inconsistencies before they become problems. And we can do that in joined up ways, like as we previously heard in the intro talk, we can do this in ways that go together. We can use persistent IDs like ORCID, RAW, Dryad, or we can work with groups like STM to actually bring that information together in one shared space. Now, this middle one, you can't read it. This is about how we've started making a move at Wiley to be a proactive publisher rather than a reactive one. And that top stage says mitigation of risk where we're vulnerable. We use real-life benchmarks to work out exactly what issues there were and how to get an accurate picture of what bad content looks like. Once we know what that bad content is, we had to make those data points explainable, we had to make them understandable, and we had to then expose them and build narratives at the right points in workflows so people could actually do things with them. So we would put clear contextual evidence in front of users so that when they say, hey, what's up with this, they can say that with confidence. We don't want these tools to make decisions. We want it to empower people to make better decisions, if that makes sense. And then once you've done that, you start those feedback loops to continuously improve and effectively horizon scan, which is really the key piece. Setting those loops in motion helps us be more proactive. All of this is lovely in theory. Operationally, it's a nightmare. So we built a platform for it, which you can't see here, but you can see upstairs. Some of you have already heard that. It's called Research Exchange. My focus for the last 3 years has been the RI module of this, which is called Research Exchange Screening. We have over 340 journals on this platform. We use it literally every day on all content, and we run multiple checks at all stages of an article's lifespan, so before, mid-peer review, and post it. and you expose those findings, those artifacts, and you can put them in front of users in clear, explainable ways. So just to be clear, as a final point, I'm aware I'm at time, what I want to be clear about is that a handful of data points doesn't necessarily mean research misconduct or paper mill activity. Instead, we're surfacing inconsistencies, things that might not be obvious at first glance, that might take half an hour to find out, they now take 30 seconds. Particularly with things like reviewer user activity, citation analysis, by surfacing these early, we don't just catch RI issues, but we catch low quality content too. And that shift from reactive to proactive really allows us to make efficiencies there. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my home country. I'm so happy to see so many of our friends and old colleagues in Lisbon. So I'm here today to tell you more about Dryad. I'm Maria. I'm head of partnership development, and Dryad is an open data publishing platform, but also a community of stakeholders ranging from publishers, institutions, funding agencies, and scholarly societies that are deeply engaged with the practice of publishing data openly, but also thinking about ways of reusing data and maximize reproducibility in science. So the focus of my poster that I hope to discuss with you today is around how Dryad is contributing to uphold research integrity and is supporting publishers by publishing data that has been curated and is made publicly available. So the premise of my poster is that all of us in the room are deeply aware, and unfortunately we're dealing with this on a daily basis, that our scientific fraud has become quite pervasive in research. So in the publishing landscape in particular, in the last 5 to 7 years, it's become quite a daily task to screen papers, and unfortunately we've become aware and have seen high-profile cases of journals and publishers that have been attacked by paper mills operations. These have become increasingly sophisticated over the years. Coupled with that, we've also seen the diversity of wide applications of tools and technology. So we now have AI tools that can be deployed to even create papers from scratch or fabricate peer reviews. But most importantly, researchers still have to grasp with the biggest challenge of all, which is to still publish in high-profile journals to get the validation and recognition they need to enable career progression. So until we reach a point where publish and perish is no longer the biggest challenge, all of our efforts are still quite in vain. But coupled with that, a challenge that publishers in particular have been facing over the years relate to data, and this is where Dryad fits in. So in many cases, publications are posted online with statements saying that simply data is available upon request with no additional information. In often cases, data has been mishandled or simply lost because a student left the lab and the data was on someone's laptop and that suddenly disappeared. And unfortunately, we also know of cases where data has been simply fabricated and is fraudulent. And what that means for publishers on a daily basis is that there are delays in the editorial process. In many cases, journal managers need to liaise with institutions to get these issues sorted. And ultimately, of course, this is all painful as an experience in itself. But more importantly, it means that there is research being published that is simply flawed. So we at Dryad hope to help progress these challenges and be part of a solution, primarily by providing support for publishers with the research data that accompanies publications. And we believe that by making data openly, publicly available, that means that not only the data can be validated by the scientific experts who act as peer reviews, but ultimately peer scientists who access the work, but also the media and journalists and students can validate the findings if the data underpinning a journal publication is publicly available. And coupled with that, ensuring that these data has been curated, has undertaken a process of quality control, has been validated, it ensures that these data can be fully described. The metadata is also robust to enable verification, understandability, and ultimately the reproducibility of the results that are in a journal publication. So Dryad, for the last 15 years, has been supporting publishers, ensuring that the data that they provide with their journal articles can be considered worthy of trust. That means the way whereby we deliver that is by firstly integrating with journals as authors go through the editorial workflow to publish research. So we partner with many journals and many publishers also who are attending OASPA to enable authors to make a data deposits in a streamlined way through the manuscript workflow. Also, we have a private for peer review option, meaning that authors can make the data underpinning the findings of the journal available for peer review purpose without having to make it publicly available as of yet. We have a team of dedicated curators who check that the data is complete. They assess all the documentation, they download all the data sets, and importantly, they provide guidance to researchers who publish data with Dryad so that the chances of having their data accessed by other colleagues, but also ultimately reused, can be maximized. And coupled with all of these points, we publish all our data in public domain. So this means that anyone worldwide can access the data to verify it and further reuse it. So I would like to tell you more about how that all works. So I hope to use the poster session to do that. But in the meantime, I will also like to share a couple of recommendations on how journals and publishers can implement strategies to support data sharing and publication. I see that my time is up, so I'll invite you to browse the points on the box and to discuss them further at the poster session upstairs. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Hylke Koers. I'm the Chief Information Officer for STM Solutions, and I also serve as the Program Director for GetFTR, which is what brings me to the stage today. Thank you, first of all, very much for having me, or obrigado, as I learn is how you say it here. This is my poster, and I've just copied it into a slide so that you recognize it and you know where to go if you'd like to hear a little bit more about it. And what I wanted to now is just speak about a few facets of GetFTR that hopefully will pique your interest. So GetFTR is a project that is about providing and optimizing pathways to trusted, authoritative, scholarly content for researchers as they move around the scholarly web with its host of search tools, abstract indexing databases, and reading platforms. And of course, that becomes all the more important and pertinent as we increasingly see different copies, different versions of content, and different scholarly works available on multiple platforms. The initial use case, how GetFTR started, was really focusing on connecting the point of discovery to the point of access, effectively removing barriers as much as possible for researchers to get to the content that they're looking for. And GetFTR does that, and as part of that original use case, focused on two mechanisms for that. The first is signaling entitlement status, so that a researcher will know if they have access to when they see a link, for example, a search result list. That, of course, includes open access or free material, but also subscription-based content. The second way is by providing reliable, high-quality links to that content, and depending a little bit on the specific context and what is possible, ideally, and in most cases, that means one-click access to the PDF. So this is how GetFTR started about 5 years ago, but a lot has happened since. We've seen many other use cases and integration points, for example, integrations into publishers' reference lists, which of course are also a point of discovery. We've seen how Koers uses GetFTR as a source of information about OA publications, and we've seen how GetFTR is used as back-end infrastructure for content syndication on both ResearchGate and ScienceDirect. And last year, we've launched a GetFTR browser extension that enables researchers to install that themselves and benefit from the functionalities that GetFTR offers, also on sites that themselves have not integrated with GetFTR. And you'll see a couple of examples listed here. And now, and this was announced just before summer, GetFTR is also playing a role in research integrity by signaling to researchers when an article has been retracted or when an erratum has been published. And the unique positioning, the unique way that GetFTR integrates in this distributed scholarly web, that means that we have the ability to do that kind of signaling really very, very early on in the researcher journey, namely at the point where they are about to click on a link that could point to a retracted work. So with that capability, GetFTR is helping to make sure that researchers don't inadvertently end up reading a retracted paper without realizing that that paper has been retracted, which provides a new dimension to that ambition of providing pathways to trusted authoritative content. Finally, since this is OASPA, a few words about the value of GetFTR specifically for open access publishers. First thing to note is that open access content is of course included in that entitlement signaling that GetFTR provides, and we get the data directly from publishers, making it a source of pretty high quality, comprehensive, accurate links to open access content. I would also note that GetFTR works granular at the level of the DOI, so it also works well for hybrid journals and then picks out those articles that are open access. GetFTR supports content syndication, which is of interest to many publishers if you just look at the announcements of new partnerships on ResearchGate and ScienceDirect. And GetFTR here can provide some of the back-end infrastructure that you need to deliver a seamless user experience in content syndication scenarios, but also help capture usage across different platforms in an accurate way. And finally, like I mentioned, GetFTR now also fulfills this role to bolster research integrity, which I would argue is paramount to all scholarly publishers, regardless of business model. That's all for now. I hope to see you at the poster, or find me or Heather Staines, who does some of the business development for GetFTR, who is around to continue the conversation. Thank you.
Hi everyone, sorry to be standing in the way of your coffee. I promise to be no longer than 5 minutes. My name is Joe Deville. I'm an academic based at Lancaster University, and I'm also the managing director of the Open Book Collective. I'm standing here representing a community of publishers, librarians, academics, open infrastructure providers, and a range of others who've been working together for a number of years now. The community is called COPIM, formed in the COPIM project. COPIM stands for Community-Led Open Publication Infrastructures for Monographs. So that was a funded research project that ended in 2023. We're now working on a follow-on project called the COPIM Open Book Futures Project, which runs until April 2026, both projects funded by Research England and the Arcadia Fund. As it says there, central to both projects has been our argument that diamond open access is the optimal solution for long-form open access book publishing. We make that argument for a number of reasons. One, that we think that the kind of predominant alternative, a BPC-based funding model, is fundamentally unsustainable. If we expanded BPCs hugely across the scholarly system, it would probably bankrupt many universities, funders, and so on. We also think that a BPC-based funding model is fundamentally unfair. We know that open access books get read more, distributed more widely, travel more easily than their closed access equivalents. But we also know that those that tend to have access to BPC funding tend to be more privileged academics, either in more secure positions or in countries or local or national contexts where funding is available to support book processing charges. So for that reason, we also argue that diamond open access isn't just about business models, it's also about equity, to echo the last panel, and social justice. But we do more than just argue, we also look to show how open access books can be funded differently, can be more widely distributed, more durably archived, made more accessible, and can be more experimental in both form and content than other kinds of scholarly books. So how do we do that? Well, in a number of different ways. So I work on the Open Book Collective. Open Book Collective is a charity that provides ways for libraries to support open access book publishers and book publishing service providers via potentially renewable annual subscriptions. We currently have 12 publisher members based in UK, Europe, North America, and South Africa, and are looking to expand that in the coming months and years. We have around 80 supporting libraries and have so far raised around 800,000 euros to support the work of our members. And as a charity, we also make small capacity building grants. We'll soon be announcing the winners of our first round to build open access book publishing capacity. Our work within the Open Book Collective and the project as a whole is underpinned by the ethos of scaling small. This means putting in place the infrastructures and workflows that enable diverse range of initiatives of different sizes, not just to survive, but to thrive. Another model is the Opening the Future revenue model. This is a kind of bit like a subscribe to open model. It's currently being used by 2 university presses, Central European University Press and Liverpool University Press, and has raised over 180,000 euros so far, and has facilitated the publication of at least 25 new open access books. And my colleague Tom Grady and so on are looking for additional publishers to use that model, so if you're interested, please let me know. We also have Tote Open Metadata, a non-profit open metadata management and dissemination platform, making it far easier for open access publishers to get their books discovered and archived. Tote has 27, although that number is growing rapidly, publishers already using its services, and is also generating funds for itself via the Open Book Collective. We also have the work on being done by my colleagues Janneke Adema and colleagues. Janneke leads the experimental publishing group, doing some really exciting stuff, a number of pilot projects showcasing the possibilities of open access, long-form open access book publishing, and also publishing the Experimental Publishing Compendium, which provides different examples, tools, and practices to really promote experimental open scholarship. And finally, work to make ebooks more accessible and to make it easier to archive those ebooks. That includes launching the new Tote archiving network and a new National Libraries network involving 7 National Library members across Europe, North America, and the Middle East. My time is up. 2 seconds over. Thank you very much.